Right, so let's have a look at these. These have just arrived, literally. And they are from Pro Hunter Swaging, and they're some of their rather spectacular slugs. Now, anyone in the air gunning scene at the minute will have heard about slugs. They're the pellet or ammo of choice at the minute. Everyone's talking about them, everyone seems to be bringing out new ones, and everyone seems to be trying them. Obviously, Pro Hunter Swaging have been making these for quite a while, and all of these are hand swaged, all hand finished, and I've got to say, looking at them, the finish is astonishing. It's really, really good. Now they don't just make the one type, they make a wide variety of types, calibers, and different types within those calibers. So what I've got here, I've got two different types of 177. I've got a 13 grain 177 caliber one, which are called high impacts. Then I've got a 15 grain 177 caliber one, which is called standard. And then I've got some 2.2 17.8 grain ones, which are the high impacts. So you can see from that the 13 grain one, they're not that much heavier than the JSB heavies, which are sort of 10.6 grains or whatever it is, or Barracudas. So they're not that much heavier than some of the heavyweight normal 177 pellets. The 15 grain ones obviously are a little bit heavier than norm. That's more like you're heading towards 2.2 pellet territory there with those. And 17.8 grains in the 2.2s, you know, when you think that an air arms is probably what, I think they're 16 grains, or near as damn it 16 grain. So again, very close to being the weight of a normal pellet. And that was one of the problems in sub 12, because these are all suitable for sub 12s, was the fact that the original slugs were so heavy that in a sub 12 they were pretty useless, to be fair. But they've managed to get the weights down now, so the weight shouldn't be an issue. So your trajectory shouldn't be too loopy. Plus, of course, remember that generally speaking, these have got better ballistic coefficients anyway than a normal pellet. So, quality. Let's have a little look at one, shall we? Right, so this is the 13 grain 177 high impact one, and the finish is really, really good. As you can see, they've got a reasonable skirt on them. Again, unlike some of the earlier slugs that came out that were almost flat on the end, so they didn't really work especially well with sub 12 because they didn't expand at all into the rifling, and they were so solid that there was a tendency that in sub 12s as well they did jam in the barrel, and that was my main dread with trying slugs in a sub 12. Accuracy aside, the main dread was that you'd try it in sub 12 and it'd jam in the barrel and cause all sorts of problems. Well, I can tell you, I've put one of these 13 grain ones through my my Red Wolf. I've just had a quick shot just into a book, just to make sure that it ran through the magazine and ran through the barrel without any jamming or any issues, and I'm absolutely delighted to say that it worked like a treat. So that's the main worry as far as I was concerned with trying these, even before you come to the accuracy stakes, because obviously all air rifles prefer different types of ammunition. So that's highly subjective, depending on your barrel, depending on your rifle and all the rest of it. Also depending on the ranges you want to shoot. But what you don't want is something that's going to jam in your barrel. And I'm happy to say that these most certainly do not. And the quality of them is extremely good. Really, really nice. Now there is a difference between the high impact ones and the standards. I'll just show you a standard one. Right, the standard one, as you can see, comes to a much sharper point. Well, it would do if it wasn't a hollow point, but you know what I mean. It's much more refined. It's got the high impact ones have got like a really flat end with a hole in the middle, whereas these come up to a very thin wall with a hole in the middle, and they're also slightly longer. Again, beautifully finished. Really, really nice. Now, I've had a quick weigh of some of these on my scales, and my scales aren't massively accurate, but they all weighed the same, really. There was scarcely any variation at all in weight. Certainly as good as normal air rifle pellets. So when they're making these, they're obviously spending a great deal of time and effort making sure that the quality control is really good. And if you look at that for a hand swage pellet, it's as good, the quality is as good as any bought pellet. They're really, really nice. They're not at all like those early slugs. The quality is bob on. So that's the two 177s. And here we have the .22 high impact. And again, it's got quite a big hollow head to it. It really has. Again, reasonably decent indented skirt. Look at that, you know, that goes in quite a way. And the skirt is reasonably thin, so you're going to get expansion into your rifling on that. And again, quality wise, I've weighed a few of these as well. Well within the tolerances that you would expect of expensive high end air rifle pellets like JSBs and H&Ns. Finish again, superb. Really, really nice. No damage to the skirts, no damage to the heads, and they're nice and smooth. One thing they are doing, they are quite slippery. So, really nice. Really, really nicely made. Now, obviously, I think it's fair to say that these are possibly going to show their full potential through the higher powered air rifles. You know, you fire something like that through a 30 or 40 or 50 foot-pound air rifle, and it's going to show its full potential. But mine are sub 12, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to see whether these are of any benefit at all to those shooting in sub 12. Like I say, the first hurdle has been overcome because I fired them through my rifle, or fired the 177 through my Red Wolf, and it didn't jam in the barrel. So that's the first hurdle over. So the next thing to do is this weekend, I will be taking these pellets out into the field, both the 22 and the 177, and giving them a try to see what sort of accuracy they give in a sub 12 foot-pound air rifle. Now, just looking at that, the design of the 22 and the 177 for that matter, I've been shooting a lot of feral pigeons recently at fairly close range, sort of 25 yards. And what I found is it's sometimes very difficult because of where I'm shooting them to get the perfect headshot that you'd normally try and get. So I've been doing a lot of body shots, shooting from behind, the classic in the back between the wings, which normally results in a nice clean kill. But obviously, the harder you hit them, the better that sort of shot is going to be. And my idea of getting these was that I was going to use these for feral pigeons and the rats where I'm quite close, and what I want really is something that hits very hard. A slightly heavier pellet that really hits hard. And I'm hoping that these are going to be ideal for that sort of work. So it just remains to be seen what the accuracy potential of these things are. Will they hold a group in my rifles, or will they give poor results? Now, obviously, it's difficult for anyone to say without trying them. Every rifle's different. Even the same make of rifle in the same caliber all show different shooting characteristics. So don't take what my shooting results as gospel. The only thing I would say to you is that the main worry about trying slugs has been alleviated from my mind, and that was that they would jam, because I was terrified of shooting one of these down a red wolf barrel and finding it jam, because that would just be a disaster trying to get one out. And I think that's what puts an awful lot of people off. After all, people will buy endless tins of pellets and try them, constantly trying tins of pellets, and they'll buy, without even thinking about it, buy a tin of pellets, try it, and if it doesn't work, they'll try a different tin of pellets. But people avoid slugs, I think, because they're frightened of ruining their rifles more than getting poor results, because you get poor results with all sorts of different, some will give poor results, some will give great results, but people still try them. And I think the reason that more people don't try slugs through their guns is not because they're worried that they won't be accurate, because you can't tell without trying them, but because they're worried that they're going to jam in their rifles, or won't fit in their magazines, or just plain old won't work. They won't come out the end of the barrel. And that hurdle, I think, has been overcome with these. Admittedly, some of the earlier slugs were heavy, flat-ended, and definitely did not work very well at all with sub-12s. But these with the much lighter weights that are much nearer to a normal air rifle pellet, and with the slightly thinner skirts at the end and the hollow bit in the end of the pellet, where you're going to get some expansion into the rifling, make them more like an air rifle pellet rather than the very early slugs that resembled a sort of bullet head. So I think really there's no real reason anymore for more people not to at least try these and see what sort of results they get out of them. And it also depends what you want. If you're shooting rats at fairly close range and you just want a really heavy, hard hitting pellet that's going to knock them for 6, you don't need sort of pellet on pellet at 50 yards. You just want reasonable 5p grouping at 20 yards is more than adequate for shooting rats, ferals, stuff like that at close range, but where you want to hit them really hard with a sub 12 foot-pound air rifle. And I think these could be another tool in your armoury for that sort of thing. They may not give you pinpoint accuracy at 50 yards or 60 yards. They might be way better than your normal pellets, because the results tend to vary a lot from, like I say, from rifle to rifle with slugs. But even based on that, if they'll group well at 20 yards and you're after rats, then these things are going to hit way harder than any commercially available pellet. So they might be worth having some in the armoury anyway, just for those occasions. Like I say, that's what I wanted them for primarily, to try them on these ferals and on rats, where the ranges aren't great, but I want maximum impact and maximum knockdown power. So there you go, 3 different types of pellet. 2 177s, a 13 grain high impact one, a 15 grain standard one, and then a 2.2, the high impact ones at 17.8 grains. And so far they look great, really well made, very consistent in the weights, and nicely finished. And best of all, the 177 ones do shoot out the end of my Red Wolf. So this weekend I'll be out in the field testing these out and seeing whether they shoot as well as they look, and hopefully they will give me pretty good results, I hope. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you're interested in these, keep your eye open over the weekend when I'll be out using these and posting some pictures and some videos of the results.